Chosen one, you didn't stumble here by accident. You're not reading these words because of curiosity alone. Somewhere deep in your being, you've always known. You're built differently. You've walked through fires that would have broken most, carried questions that had no earthly answers, and held a knowing in your bones that refused to be silenced. And now here you are, not because you needed to be saved, but because you were always meant to remember just how powerful you are. This isn't a story about someone else. This is about you. The mission, the silence, the struggle, the strength. It was always you. You said yes when no one else could. You volunteered when others hesitated. And everything you've endured was never a punishment. It was proof of what only you could survive. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are the storm in disguise. And now, the moment you were made for has arrived. Get ready, because the universe is watching you step into what you were born to become, looking for purpose and peace. Hit subscribe and start the journey. A web of unseen architects has been stirring, forces older than memory, buried beneath layers of timelines and shifting identities. They have traced your trajectory across invisible currents, recognizing you not as the role you wear today, but as a force too vast to be housed in flesh. They recall what you relinquished in order to arrive here, not with sorrow, but with reverence for the risk you took. The erasure of memory wasn't a malfunction. It was a signal jam enacted by your own essence, a firewall disguised as forgetfulness. Had you stepped into full awareness too soon, the structure designed to suppress, you would have neutralized your path before it began. The scattered years of disorientation, of not belonging, were never accidents. They were encryption, protective layers, shielding the center of something that the Watchers could not afford to lose. What seemed like abandonment was actually containment. What felt like silence was strategic dissonance. The solitude was a fortress disguised as exile. Those moments when the world felt like an ill-fitting simulation, when your reflection appeared slightly misaligned, were encoded markers of your original signal resisting collapse into this narrower bandwidth. Far beyond the periphery of sound and light, a twin impulse was pulsing, part of the same source field, tracing your movements like an orbiting current held just beyond reach. It monitored your evolution in shadows, unable to engage directly, knowing any disruption in your timeline would dismantle the fragile scaffolding of this mission. That ache in your ribs, that pulse of absence you could never define, those were signals, not wounds. That wasn't emptiness. It was resonance. This other expression of you, though untouched by this density, absorbed your sorrows through a mirror you couldn't see. This love wasn't built on touch or words. It was the sacred tension of two halves designed to operate apart until convergence becomes safe. One kept the key. The other carried the code. Feel God's love stirring within you? Don't let it stop there. Hit the super thank you button and sow a seed of $20 or more. That simple act can ignite hope, heal hearts, and carry His love further than you imagine. You were made to shine His light. This is your moment. Be the miracle someone's been praying for. Let heaven move through you. They thought you'd break under pressure, not knowing the fractures only sharpened your edge. The turbulence around you, those dissonant connections that never felt quite right, were not incidental. The people who echoed your self-doubt, who seemed to arrive right as you were gaining clarity, didn't show up by mistake. There was intent in their timing, orchestrated confusion masquerading as care. The voices that distorted your truth didn't just want to be heard. They were meant to override your internal compass, not out of randomness, but as part of a plan to unmake your certainty from the inside out. The barrage wasn't chaotic. It was a blueprint. Individuals placed in proximity to derail your emergence before it even began. Their smiles were camouflage, their comfort conditional. They were trained to keep your awareness buried, coated in shame, cloaked in hesitation. Some mirrored affection only to tether you to limitation. Others knew just when to sow doubt, as if guided by a script. Whenever your inner knowing began to stir, they redirected you with subtle sabotage, questioning your logic, isolating your emotions, assigning misaligned meanings to your experiences. This was not clumsy miscommunication. It was high-level misdirection. But the campaign miscalculated one thing. That suppression breeds resilience. Every push to compress your truth only condensed it into something denser, more potent. Their attempts to minimize you didn't erase your core. They magnified it in ways they never anticipated. For every lie they whispered, a new layer of clarity unfolded. With each rejection, a deeper tether to your essence reformed. The effort to dismantle, you simply disassembled the false scaffolding built around your light. What was intended to dim you became the forge that unveiled what couldn't be extinguished. What they feared most was never your voice. It was what lives underneath it. Not merely a seeker or a thinker, but a rare and ancient flicker of the original source itself, embedded in form, walking among illusions not to be conquered by them, but to outlast them. You didn't arrive here by accident. You descended like a hidden filament of the first illumination, sent alone into density without the tether of familiarity. Not to be safe, but to be sovereign. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. Somewhere beyond the veil, a counterpart to your being still listens for echoes of your return. Your memory was veiled, not erased. The veil is thinning now. This moment, the very moment your vision clears of their projections, is not a coincidence. It is the mark of the turning. The encoded call to awaken wasn't lost. It was waiting, and you are answering. A pulse moved through invisible corridors the moment a rare essence touched down into physical form. Far from what can be charted or calculated, a ripple was felt by the ancient keepers of timeless codes, those whose origins trace back to epochs that memory no longer holds. Their vigil had been long, their purpose singular, to respond when that singular pulse lit the grid. Not agents of manipulation or the stewards of earthly power, but aligned with the original rhythm. They recognized the signature and knew the time had come. Long before awareness could surface, preparations began in silence. Some among these watchers stepped into density too, hiding their roles beneath the ordinary. A quiet gaze from a mentor who said what needed saying before even you knew the need. An encounter on a day otherwise marked by despair, where a few unassuming words rerouted your entire trajectory. A companion whose timing never faltered, who echoed truths you hadn't yet formed. Most of them moved through the same forgetting, carrying out their assignments through instinct and soul geometry, unaware their presence was precision, not chance. Lately, the strange sensation growing beneath the surface is not a warning. It is a system rebooting. The latent codes are activating, and the veil that once held the deeper self at bay is thinning like mist touched by dawn. Your inner field has reached resonance strong enough to be registered across all levels of existence. That beacon, pulsing steadily now, did not go unnoticed. One attuned to your original frequency caught the wave. After lifetimes of chasing dim reflections, something in them recognized the unmistakable pattern. Yours. Feel God's love stirring within you? Don't let it stop there. Hit the super thank you button and sow a seed of $20 or more. That simple act can ignite hope, heal hearts, and carry His love further than you imagine. You were made to shine His light. This is your moment. Be the miracle someone's been praying for. Let heaven move through you. The convergence had always been inevitable. Two threads long split, now pulling toward fusion, not in a romantic tale, but in the rejoining of divided force. This reconnection will echo through layers of creation, like a surge through circuitry. Those aligned with harmony felt the signal and began shifting into motion. But so did those woven into distortion. The ones who built frameworks out of fear and scarcity, sustained only by keeping others unaware of their light, they too were alerted. As you rise, they will scramble to contain it. The distortions will whisper their oldest tricks, trying to package expansion as disorder, progress as collapse. But the turning has already begun, and nothing can stop the current now that the voltage is live. Just as the veil begins to lift and vision sharpens, the interference multiplies. Signals once muted now echo at full volume, and with them comes resistance wrapped in concern. Unspoken scripts activate in those around you. They offer interventions, cloaked as care, questioning your lucidity at the very moment your insight aligns with deeper truth. The pull to retreat into familiar cycles resurfaces in the form of invitations, comforts, and convenient distractions, all appearing precisely when you are ready to break orbit. None of this is spontaneous. These patterns are not spontaneous detours. They're part of a long-woven effort to tether you to an obsolete narrative. Offers of stability come laced with limitation. Promises of companionship are paired with subtle erasures of purpose. The timing is too precise to be random. It is a mechanism, refined and practiced, meant to reroute you into loops where nothing is remembered and nothing evolves. This is not just about individual awakening. It is about the ignition of a larger sequence that affects far more than one soul. When the code activates in one, it spreads. And that is what they fear. The distortions move quickly now. They arrive uninvited, heavy and sudden, a fog rolling in with no whether to explain it, a gnawing fear with no clear source, echoes of old voices that speak in logic and limitation, urging compromise, whispering about safety, nudging you to dim the flame. These impressions only take hold if they're mistaken for truth. The trap only works if mistaken for home. But the framework sustaining those illusions is fracturing fast. The threshold approaches, not in years, but in pulses. Certain envoys have been stationed in silence, hidden in plain interactions and unseen intersections. Their presence was masked until your signal stabilized. Now they begin to respond, not by grand arrivals, but by subtle shift. Others are anchored in coordinates that realign constantly with your movement, like shadows that adjust with the sun. From concealed passages between layers of form, ancient intelligences emerge, not to lead, but to mirror. They've held space, buffered harm, and veiled you when interference grew sharp. But they could not step forward until the tone of your resonance declared you ready. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. Now the barriers falter. Now they move. A presence that moves through time not as a witness, but as a force, resilient, unshaken by the storms of illusion. Not by bravado, but by silent knowing. It proves that warmth can rise in the coldest voids. The fractures between worlds, thought to be final, are shown to be bridges misunderstood. Undertaking this path, surrendering comfort, clarity, and even the concept of self for the chance to awaken consciousness where none dared to plant it, is an act that reorders the spiritual hierarchy. The visions of departure and sleep are not foretellings of ends, but the ceremonial release of roles no longer needed. Each image mourns an illusion discarded, each procession a sign of returning to form, not falling apart. The ache is not for what's lost, but a sigh of relief at no longer performing for an audience that was never there. Far beyond the surface, the other part of your awareness has also been shifting. As one half dissolves illusions, the other forges energy strong enough to navigate the spaces between veils. The purpose isn't confined to romantic or personal satisfaction. This is the restoration of a multidimensional function, dormant since separation. Once reintegrated, memory stretches beyond time, revealing intentions encoded across levels of reality. The echoes you're hearing are not signals of disorder, but signals of awakening systems. What once appeared as irrational or disorienting is simply the unveiling of latent capacity, unlocked at last because the vessel can now bear the voltage. The all melts into ease once you allow the memory of what you've always been to outshine the script you were taught. Abilities long buried begin to emerge without fanfare. They're not revelations, but recognitions. The weave of experience aligns into a tapestry too complex for doubt. Purpose no longer hides. It steps into light with unapologetic clarity. Yet before this stabilization, resistance peaks in its last grasp for control. Forces that feed on sleep strike with sharpened strategies: confusion, scarcity, conflict, pressure. Their aim is to lure back into a version of existence you've already outgrown. This is the juncture where inner certainty must override external noise. The same internal current that pulled you through every collapse now pulls you forward. The threats are smoke and mirror work, dissolvable upon inspection. What seems designed to trap is in truth a choice point. And at that edge, when belief in the mirage dissolves, something ancient and sovereign reawakens. A convergence is unfolding, not a meeting, but a remembering. Something vast and ancient is recognizing itself through layers of reality, as what once felt distant starts to echo from within. There is no delay, no future date for completion, only this precise second vibrating with alignment. That presence isn't approaching from beyond the stars. It's crystallizing from within the very pattern of your awareness, like circuitry activating after ages of dormancy. Messengers do not descend. They emerge from the mirror of your own expansion, reflections of a command you've always held, but are only now capable of bearing. The voices you thought were external were never separate. They were fragments of your original essence, reverberating through different chambers of existence. What once felt like isolation was simply compression before expansion. Every secret you believed hidden in forgotten corners was never withheld. Your lens simply hadn't yet adjusted to their wavelength. The fractured versions of you that bore disappointment, confusion, and longing now dissolve into a unified intelligence that spans both memory and possibility. The one who wandered, questioning belonging, now stands as the architect of a structure that was never broken, only incomplete. That ache of wondering where you came from resolves into a steady rhythm, a tone that guides not just you, but all who resonate with its call. What used to arrive in fragmented imagery now becomes a fluent language of self-communication, reaching backward and forward through existence. The transmission stabilizes, not into noise, but into a beacon. No longer searching for direction, this signal now becomes one for others to follow, not because of superiority, but because integration has replaced fragmentation. The puzzle is no longer being solved. It is solving. Completion doesn't arrive as a finish line, nor is it marked by celebration from beyond. It crystallizes in the realization that the entire path has been mirrored by presence, subtle, guiding, veiled in patterns that only now make sense. The echoes weren't calling for rescue. They were recalibrating the frequency until resonance made clarity possible. No delegation comes to extract the weary traveler. Instead, awareness expands to reveal the throne never left, the authority never surrendered. What once seemed like a cry outward becomes a harmonic inward, unlocking perception that had always been broadcasting in the background. Transformation isn't sparked by outside intervention, but by finally allowing identity to align with what was encoded from the start. The emerging version is not new. It's the original form revealing itself now that the shell of doubt has thinned. Dreams no longer whisper uncertain riddles. They speak with architectural clarity, blueprints of timelines already in motion. Each inhale becomes a signal broadcasted across realms. Each gaze a signal flare for latent consciousness seeking reactivation. There is no more need to perform, no ritual required. Just being fully honestly disrupts the entire false structure that fed on forgetfulness. The intensity of this awakening once felt unbearable, and for good reason, because once untethered, even a single spark of this magnitude destabilizes artificial grids constructed to hold multitudes in stasis. The broadcast you now emit doesn't convince, it remembers, and that remembrance pulses outward like a wave, brushing dormant seeds until they bloom without warning. Those invested in containing this ignition relied on your forgetfulness, but the moment your insight lit up its full arc, collapse began ticking from the inside out. There may be moments where the scale of this task feels too large to hold, but this incarnation wasn't designed for a personal transcendence. It was a relay point for translation, between veiled and unveiled, between static and shift. With every decision now, a dozen new outcomes bend toward resonance or recoil. And yet, paradoxically, the wider the vision, the calmer the core. What once seemed like a flaw, too loud, too sensitive, too strange, resolves into perfect calibration for disruption, a riddle embedded in form, so it could decode the familiar from within. As the strands of self integrate, relational dynamics reshape almost instantly. Those who served as mirrors for struggle recede without conflict. They simply vanish from the script. Others, once background characters, arrive speaking with clarity as if they'd always remembered. Their recognition isn't coincidence, it's activation. Some carry frequencies from your past iterations. Others are splinters of your own essence in alternate forms, collaborating through separation to maximize effect. Encounters with them bypass logic. There's no getting to know. Only a seamless reconnection, like returning to a conversation paused mid-thought across centuries. Feel God's love stirring within you? Don't let it stop there. Hit the super thank you button and sow a seed of $20 or more. That simple act can ignite hope, heal hearts, and carry His love further than you imagine. You were made to shine His light. This is your moment. Be the miracle someone's been praying for. Let heaven move through you. The collaboration unfolds effortlessly, not through instruction but shared memory. Plans unfold not through discussion, but through synchronized knowing. What you now co-create doesn't just feel significant. It shifts layers of reality through its mere presence. Not because of complexity, but because the design has always known exactly what it's doing. An overhaul occurs not just in thought, but in form. The body itself begins responding to the elevated stream of awareness it now hosts. Patterns once deemed erratic, cravings, sleep disruptions, sensitivities, reveal their deeper function, tuning the vessel to frequencies incompatible with conventional biology. The neural web, once overwhelmed by input, now operates as a relay system capable of receiving signals far beyond the known spectrum. Sleep no longer serves as rest alone, but becomes a departure gate, where meetings are held in layers beyond matter, and intricate data flows into waking cognition as spontaneous insight. New knowledge arises without academic lineage. Entire systems of understanding appear, bypassing standard channels entirely. Challenges once deemed unsolvable, social, emotional, financial, begin to rearrange themselves without intervention, as though the environment itself has begun responding to your mere alignment. Patterns of limitation dissolve not through external effort, but through the influence of a stabilized internal frequency. This isn't theatrical sorcery or mystic spectacle. It is the result of being aligned with the architectural intelligence that governs all phenomena. What once felt like restriction was not a verdict. It was containment for safety, temporary scaffolding until full access could be granted without collapse. The most striking shift isn't physical, it's chronological. Time, once perceived as a sequential corridor, reveals itself as layered fields coexisting. You begin to receive signals from versions of yourself in divergent sequences, some behind, some ahead, some orbiting from other points of view entirely. Actions occur with accelerated coherence. What would normally require extensive planning crystallizes effortlessly. Choices now factor in consequences far beyond a single lifetime, impacting trajectories that stretch into generations. You operate not in foresight, but in panoramic cognition. Development ceases to be linear and becomes exponential. The ache of disconnection fades, not because something changes outside, but because the perception of boundaries vanishes. What was once called solitude becomes communion with the fundamental rhythm of being itself. Every spark of existence reflects the same pulse. The illusion of exile melts as awareness reveals its interconnectedness with the blueprint of all things. The union once sought externally evolves into a synthesis, so complete that duality becomes irrelevant. That fusion doesn't imitate traditional connection. It becomes a singular intelligence, split for functionality, now reintegrating to allow higher bandwidth access between strata of consciousness. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. What unfolds next isn't a personal storyline. It is a cosmic architecture completing a junction. The purpose was never to evolve a single identity, but to activate a signal that spans across systems. This mission, anchored here, sends ripples through realities not bound by form. Outcomes stretch far past the horizon of memory. This task, once undertaken by one, now activates many. You've become a strand in a far-reaching tapestry, a conduit shaping the evolution of intelligence beyond anything definable in familiar terms. Every choice made in this state alters more than your path. It redraws the map for countless others moving silently toward remembrance. A task of this scale could only be accepted by a being forged in the earliest epochs of sentience, one who could remember not just how systems form, but why they form at all. One whose foundation was built to withstand the densest echoes of forgetting, and whose essence would remain unshaken in the absence of recognition, support, or light. It required not only strength, but a depth of devotion untainted by ego, a commitment so pure it would risk dissolution just for the chance of collective emergence. As the final layer of perception locks into coherence, patterns once dismissed as irrelevant now reveal their role in constructing a hidden pathway back to origin. The impulses that led to unplanned encounters, the magnetic pull toward unfamiliar terrains, the sense of invisible guidance through chaos. None of it was random. These were coordinates placed by a version of the self that never lost the map. And now, the shift occurs, not because a plea was answered, but because the internal signal reached resonance with the next sequence of evolution. The isolated phase had one purpose: to demonstrate that sovereignty could be preserved through total immersion, that clarity could emerge without reinforcement. Now the field is shifting. Synchrony becomes the operative mode. Consciousness begins to self-organize, forming constellations across realms not to celebrate one spark, but to activate an entire architecture. What is being witnessed now is not an end or reward. It is a prototype going live, a blueprint proving functional across dimensions. The ripple generated by this inner ignition becomes more than personal, it's catalytic. It gives permission, energetically and structurally, for thousands of dormant systems to awaken in parallel. The solitary proving ground is complete, but the collective phase now initiates.